Hello, and thanks for joining us today on Wired In. We have a very special guest today, Tiffany Hardy, who is the curriculum leader for English Language Arts for the Hampton City Schools. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So before we get started, I want to find out a little bit of information about you and how you came into the role that you're in now for Hampton City Schools.
Well, I've had a wonderful career. I've been in Hampton City Schools the entire time. I actually started student teaching here in a high school, and then I moved into an English teaching position in 2 of our high schools. And after 8 years of teaching and earning my national boards, I became an assistant principal. And I did that for 8 years at a high school and had a wonderful experience with that. And then through some work on a national task force and working with our previous curriculum leaders, I decided that curriculum and instruction were a passion and moved into this arena.
So how long have you been in this current job?
3 years.
Okay, great. So you're really hitting the ground running and getting comfortable.
It was a mid-year transition, as a matter of fact, and I just have a phenomenal team, and I have learned so much along the way, and we work really collaboratively together, which is great because having a secondary background, but being curriculum leader for the entire spectrum, you really need to have strong people. And the 2 teacher specialists, Darlene Ingram and Debbie Farringer, who are our elementary, are just, phenomenal people to work with, and I am in their office learning every single day. And then my secondary counterpart, Marcia Grant, she is incredible, a great resource to have, and between our middle school and high school combinations, we really hit that 6-12 well.
Well, it's really important to have a great team, so I'm glad to hear that. In an area that's so important, language arts and English. So tell us why language arts is so important in the education of our young people.
Absolutely. The language arts is actually more than just reading and writing. It also is speaking and listening. And we often think of language arts as just the reading class, but it's more than that. It's all about how students access and use language, how they learn information, how they communicate among one another, and how they develop the skills they'll need to learn more throughout life, as well as to access what they need to be employable, to go beyond in school. In all 4 of those areas, reading, writing, listening, and speaking, the combination of both receptive and expressive language, it's so important. They need it for every area. If you can't read a textbook, you can't learn science, you can't learn social studies. Right. If you can't respond in writing, how can you communicate or demonstrate your knowledge? So it both, every subject relies on what the students are learning in language arts, and likewise, language arts has no purpose unless you are reading for those other areas. So there's this reciprocal relationship, and it makes the language arts absolutely essential.
So you touched on this a little bit, but tell the parents out there who have students in our school system what their children are experiencing during the language arts time that they have.
Well, as parents, many of us remember what our old English and language arts classes were like, and it doesn't really look like that anymore. It's much more dynamic, very student-friendly, student-centered. It's not about reading one story or one book. As a matter of fact, many of our kids are in the middle of multiple texts at a time, looking for opportunities to draw comparisons, thinking creatively for themselves. In our elementary classrooms, our kids have whole group instruction where the teacher is kind of the focus, modeling and showing them what good fluent reading is like and what good fluid writing is like, guiding conversations. But then they also spend a large amount of their language arts time actually in small groups. Some of those groups are supported by the classroom teacher, where they're reading text that's actually on their level. So if you're a really advanced reader, you might be reading a book that's well above your grade level. But another group might be struggling with reading. It's just not their strength. They would be reading a book at their level. It's really important that we help kids access text and not feel frustrated. So parents should expect their kids to come home and be talking about the different texts that they're reading during language arts and in their other subject areas. There should also be writing happening, and from the earliest age. From kindergarten and even pre-kindergarten, our kids are developing the letter formation. They're recognizing how to actually make letters, and then through the development of word study, they're looking at how letters form together to make sound, to make words, words to make sentences, etc., and it grows from there. And in our secondary classrooms, our kids should be exploring all of the genres within every single unit. So they're reading fiction and nonfiction, they're reading poetry, and they're reading drama, and there's a lot of media infused into it. Media is an excellent way to kind of build that common knowledge about things. We have some kids who have the luxury of having a range of life experiences. Their families are military or they've traveled a lot, so they bring this rich life experience. Other kids have very solid foundations and they've been in Hampton since birth. So their life experience, their knowledge of Hampton is very, very deep. But life experience is different. And using media, we can kind of bring in that common area so that if we're reading a book about a mountain and we use media and still images and pictures, all the kids in the room can have a similar common understanding of what a mountain is like, so that as they start reading, they can activate that information. So parents should be hearing about a variety of experiences happening in the classroom.
Great. So speaking of parents, what types of resources are available for parents within our schools to help their student with language arts, writing, and English?
Absolutely. We are very fortunate in Hampton City Schools to have invested in resource personnel who are specifically focused on literacy. And in our elementary schools, we have a certified reading specialist in every single one of our traditional elementary and our pre-K-8 schools. And that individual is the head of a literacy team, wherein they talk about the data, they look at which students are struggling, which students need more support. They align intervention resources to help those students specifically in their areas of deficit. They do a similar thing with the writing, because reading and writing have to happen simultaneously in order for a child to grow in either area. And so these literacy leaders are right there working closely with the leadership and with the classroom teachers to make sure they're addressing the needs of the kids. Another resource that's really important is that classroom teacher. Our classroom teachers are constantly getting training on word study, differentiation, critical strategies for active and strategic reading. Our teachers are just constantly investing themselves into additional training to learn more about how the brain develops, how literacy develops. And in our secondary schools, we have reading teachers who teach reading elective classes for our identified students. And those individuals are our leaders in the building for supporting teachers with literacy strategies, intervention, etc. And again, parents should definitely make connections with those classroom teachers, identify what level is my child reading on. It used to be that you walked into a bookstore and a child picked a book based on the cover they liked. But parents can really use data now to help target the right book for their child. If you're going to the library and you want to know, should I pick up a Magic Treehouse book, or should I pick a Make Your Own Ending book? What book should I choose? They can use the data that is taken either in elementary school. We have something called the DRA, the Developmental Reading Assessment, and in high school and middle school, we use the Scholastic Reading Inventory. And both of those give a reading level. Parents knowing that information is going to be so helpful for picking the right books for their kids. I can't tell you what it's like as a parent to watch your child enjoy and get excited and just fall in love with a book. And so having that information will help. Parents are such a critical resource to help their kids with literacy.
So you talked about this a little bit. I have 2 teenage boys, and they are, one of them right now is a student here, and the other one will be here later once we get everyone moved here. But I really struggle with them on helping them find that passion for reading, and it's just such a struggle. And so what tips would you give to me and other parents out there to really help their student develop a love for reading, a lifelong love for reading?
First of all, knowing their interests. If they love sports, find sports books. Actually, you mentioned this, and my son, who's 12 years old, was not an avid reader. My 12-year-old daughter couldn't put a book down. So I had this extreme, and I couldn't figure out what to do, but he loves baseball. He is a great pitcher. And I found this whole series of sports books by Mike Lupica, and he couldn't put them down. Well, once you fall in love with reading about something you love, it translates into just love for reading more. Letting them choose the books they read on the outside is so important. How many times do you put a book down 3 chapters into it and say, this isn't for me? Well, kids are no different. They want to be able to choose and fall in love with books too. So taking them to a store, using it as a reward system, getting them excited, doing family reads also helps. Because when the kids were reading Harry Potter and we sat down and we were talking about it, or recently my daughter has been reading a series and we wouldn't let her go see the movies until she had read Hunger Games, of course. She had read the first one. Well, it was this competition and everybody wants to read it because we want to go see the next film in order. So sometimes finding those kinds of things just to get them excited about reading, it translates into not being able to put the books down.
Well, based on that advice, I think I'm going to go out tonight and buy my oldest son a BMX bike book.
There you go.
It's hard to say.
There you go.
And then my other son some ice hockey books, and then maybe that'll, because those are two things they're very interested in, maybe that'll help generate some interest.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, you shared some great information today. A lot of it I did not know, being fairly new to the division myself, and I'm hopeful that folks in our community, especially parents of students in our system, got some pointers from you that can help their students be lifelong learners and lifelong readers, and really develop a passion in that area, because you're so right. If you struggle in the area of reading, then it really makes all of those other subjects a lot more difficult. So it's very important. So I hope you'll come back to Wired In the future and share more information with us. But thank you so much for joining us today.
I've really enjoyed it. Thank you, and keep reading.
I will. Thanks again for watching today, Wired In. Have a great week.